Lieutenant Loverlady.
Did you guys know that Rupture is a very balanced legend with very interactive gameplay? Yeah, what a guy. We got our set of Chakram legends throughout the last year, Priya being the balanced stat one, Ransom being focused on more of a glass cannon build, and Vera being the bulky but weaker hitting one. But while I can't wait for the next Chakram legend to come any sooner, it's only right we get a more traditional combo this time around. And it's not a traditional combo I thought we'd see so soon. BCX 2025 Day 3 is rolling around, and the announcements had to have been great. The first thing we see on the big screen is the abomination of Lance guitars being rumored as a Darkheart Kaiju of sorts. Which meant, where in the world was Stalker?
But what weapon combo are we looking for? Oh my god, wait! Wait a minute! Wait, Lance guitar! Yeah!
I guess BMG had the balls to drop Stalker altogether and go full steam ahead with Rupture's many strengths. Of course, we already knew it was a Darkheart Kaiju, but seeing all this stuff firsthand at BCX 2025, yeah, we all kind of knew this legend would be a menace on release. The general conclusion so far is that people really don't like this legend already, similarly to a Mugi. With signatures that cover an extremely wide area, a whopping 9 base strength, a devious weapon combo that isn't too hard to pick up, and maybe some other small details not so many people know about yet. We're here to do the rundown on all things Rupture related, so grab your popcorn and let's talk about those signatures first. Quick heads up that the 5-year anniversary for the channel is coming up in the month of April, and we have some fantastic reveals and videos lined up for it already. Join the Discord server in the description if you want to check it out and chat with all the cool people there. Alright, signature time. Originally, I feared that these signatures weren't going to feel very fun to use, similarly to how I feel about Ragnar's signature kit. But with how overtuned these signatures were on launch, it's impossible not to have fun playing Rupture. Those nerfs did hit his signatures pretty hard, but they can still pack a punch. I'll be mentioning these nerfs whenever we talk about the signatures too. Guitar's Insig saw nerfs to its hitboxing slightly, along with nerfs to recover time, which is a fair adjustment. It's still an extremely great signature for catching up dodges on guitars and killing people early in general, considering its force sits at 50-56. It holds the most damage out of Rupture's guitar signatures, which actually surprises me. Kill power doesn't feel too oppressive, thankfully, and while I still think they could nerf this one slightly, I think it's alright. It's a very solid tool in Rupture's kit, and honestly the one that I have the least to say about. Guitar's side sig, yeesh. We have some day one PTSD from this one, right? This was the quote-unquote will get nerfed signature before patch notes dropped, and honestly was one of the most broken signatures in a while, since Amugi's Greatsword downsig it feels like. So how's the signature doing now? Sidesig had nerfs to its time to hit being increased, decreased force, which now sits at 46-52, and less threat coverage. And now, I think it's still really good. I mean, the damage of the signature is mostly in the second hit. The first hit is just to line them up. But it's good to know that throwing it out does leave you really stationary now. Holding the signature off stage is arguably stronger, and I'm not really sure how they would go about nerfing it. It just fits so well into Guitar's kit, so it's no wonder that it's so strong. Despite having less force than Insig, it does kill around the same area, though. I do remember before the patch, Rupture did have another hitbox above the signature, which actually does help a significant amount to toning it down some. Honestly, if you know how to fight Rupture, this one's still beatable, just be prepared for a little bit of BS. Guitar's downsig is the only signature that wasn't adjusted whatsoever. I guess I didn't see any reason to buff it. This is one of those get off me tools that we talked about oh so much in the channel's history. Sitting with 55-70 force and a flat 24 damage, the signature should feel better to use. And I think it's fine really, despite the high amount of force. You can kill really early if you manage to hit it right, but a lot of the time the angle the enemy is sent isn't directly upwards, but more so diagonal or to the side. It's really not that bad, I just haven't seen much utilization of it. It could be a super good signature and we won't even know it. Maybe when we return to the Rupture analysis redone in 2032, we can talk about this one again. And also, don't hold me to my word on that. The Guitar Sigs pack a punch, but are they better than the Lance signatures? A little bit of yes and a little bit of no. The Lance section is going to be much longer, by the way. Lance Insig, I'm genuinely surprised didn't get nerfed harder. We saw it take hits to its grounded force only, which is fine, but that wasn't the problem with it. I see no issue with the damage, which sits at 24. It kills at a perfectly fine spot now, actually. Lance Insig on its own, although it does have some pretty scary threat coverage, isn't very difficult to punish from the sides, especially in twos. It also only grabs one person at a time. The aerial version has slightly less force, making sense with how early you'd be killing if it shared force with the grounded version. But the thing that makes this signature so unbelievably broken is the slide charge version. You see, when you slide charge Rupture's Insig off stage or even a platform and manage to get the hit, Rupture will drastically move downwards all of a sudden and take the enemy with you and only be let go after Rupture's already been moved down on the Y-axis a bunch, making the force of this far too high. It's actually very easy to self-destruct if you aren't careful, or if you catch an enemy near the bottom of the screen, though if you do it from the stage, you can pretty quickly come back. The trend that I've seen with newer legends is a lot of them have some strange mechanics to them that make them unique, which is good, but it also looks like hell from a balance point. Maybe the balance devs wanted to gather more info on it before nerfing it, or maybe they added the sudden fall to counter its strength, but it honestly buffs the signature more, if anything. Lance Sidezig was also a very menacing signature on release, though it took much harder hits than Inzig did. The minimum charge time went up, the decreased force now sits at 49.56, and more recover time on miss as well. All completely good changes. This signature did kill really early, even for a 9-strength legend. It also shares damage with Inzig as well, which I think is fine. Something I'm surprised they didn't nerf about Sidezig though is the threat coverage. It's very hard to see from this screenshot specifically, but lowering the brightness of the image helps to see it better. This, even with the charge time of the signature going up, is insane. They took a hitbox off of Guitar Sidezig, but not Lance Sidezig. I would have fully expected the very tiny circle here to be removed, which in my opinion would make this signature nearly balanced. But right now it sits at a pretty above average spot. If they return to Rupture's adjustments, I really wouldn't mind seeing that tiny hitbox being removed altogether. One last note is before the patch, doing a combo like Sarah Sidezig was actually very good on Rupture, but with the minimum charge time nerfs, unfortunately isn't as viable anymore. Lastly, we have Lance Downsig, unfortunately the worst of Rupture signatures, but I still have a lot to say on it. It's what I believe is the underrated signature of the bunch. The only signature to receive not a buff or a nerf, but more of an adjustment, I would say. Mainly focusing on Rupture descends faster during recovery time, which I thought meant that Rupture descended quicker into the ground, but they would have given us numbers if they were changing the minimum startup frames. What this means is that after you pop up from the ground, you descend faster to the ground than you did before the patch. Honestly, I would say this is a nerf, mainly because different weapons and attacks have different ways to hit people on the ground or the air. Like Spear Downlight, for example, is much worse against Rupture Downsig now since you descend further and Spear requires the user to be off the ground at least slightly to hit. And it still can hit if you're quick enough, obviously, but that's besides the point. Since you descend further, a lot of basic ground-hitting attacks are going to hit you now that didn't before. Downsig was already a struggle to use before the nerfs, and while this wasn't a super drastic nerf, it was still a nerf nonetheless. I'm not saying make Sidelight Downsig true or anything, because my fucking god, that was the most abominably busted shit of all time back at BCX 2025. But it would be really nice to see even just a slight minimum charge time buff. Currently, it sits at 16, and I would honestly buff it to 12 or so. 14 if 12 seems like I'm over-exaggerating. But other than that, the damage and force is alright on the signature in my opinion. Sitting at 49.60, more than Lance Sidezig actually, and 21 damage. Rupture has very, very strong signatures. It's been a very hard trend with new legends lately that really either weapon works if you manage to play it well enough. Even if speed isn't very low either, which makes playing both weapons feel smoother. Unlike another 3-speed Qatar legend, who I love. Go ahead and judge me in the comments. Now, if you know anything about Rupture, you know this mad lad has some crazy stats. Him and Zol are basically brothers now. Rupture has 9 strength, 3 dex, 5 defense, and 5 speed. Alright, BMG, what's going on here? Are we trying to make the next Ulgrim, the next Taros, the next Amugi? That seems like what they were trying to do, and we'll dive into that more later, because we've got stances. If you're on 10 strength, you're based, no problems here. The dexterity rework is actually going through this upcoming March 18th, which makes dex much more impactful, which means we have much more to talk about for this section. I think playing into dex stance is fine here since you have a whopping 8 strength, still probably the worst option, but it's not completely useless anymore. Defense takes from speed, which is alright, just not as optimal, and speed takes from dexterity. Alright, BMG, what's going on? Are we trying to make the next Ulgrim, the next Taros, the next... I mean, that's just deja vu. I'm not sure what they were thinking with this, honestly, but it had to go to one of the stats, I guess. I just didn't feel it needed to be speed, because speed taking out of dex is the best option by far, as compared to attack or defense taking out of dex. So run speed stance if you're playing optimally, and play strength if you're goofing off. Now, his play rate is actually going to be interesting since we didn't cover him immediately. He's had time to simmer in the pot. Though we held number 1 played for the entirety of patch 10.2, we're already seeing Rupture lower down further into the play rate, sitting at number 7 instead. I don't think he's going to be as underplayed as Lady Vera, for example, considering she dropped in November and is already at the number 3 lowest played in the game. I mean, yeesh, I'm sorry, Vera. I predict this play rate will sit around the middle ground, considering guitars and lance as a weapon combination people have been begging for since 2016. Rupture doesn't have very many cons to him, and again, even though it's sad that we likely won't see Stalker introduced into the game anytime soon, Rupture does not disappoint. Tier list-wise, of SA, BC, and D, I'd place Rupture into A+ tier. Mainly because I don't believe he has anything as outrageous as his competition, mainly being Ulgrim and Taros. I also originally placed him in S- tier, but with the recent dexterity rework going live March 18th, I think it lowers him ever so slightly. But I'm still very excited to see him show up in future tournaments. Onto the more fun side of things, cosmetics. Rupture's launch skins are pretty nice, so let's cover them. God tier has Default and Rockin' Rupture. Default is just fantastic. I mean, they keep nailing it with the default designs. And then Rockin' Rupture really grew on me over time, specifically with color swaps and its weapon skins. Then in pretty good tier we have Werebeast and Hulking Mantis Rupture. And just to be clear, these two can be argued for God tier as well. They both have extremely strong visual designs. And I know a lot of people love the Mantis skin as well. My issue with them pretty much resides in the color swaps not looking very good in certain ways, though some of them do look really nice. This basically comes down to personal preference, because I'd much rather use the other two over these, despite being very strong picks. As it is with any new legend, I'm excited to see Rupture's future skins. There aren't many other cosmetics for Rupture, obviously, there only being Rupture's Doodle avatar, Ruptoodle, his level 50 title, the Nemesis, sick-ass title by the way, and his bot name, Robo.Chur, so like Robo-Chur. Again, would love to see more for him soon. The lore section is what I've been waiting for especially, not only for the implications of Rupture himself, but also Stalker. Rupture, if you don't know, is the Emerald Eagle, also known as one of Red Raptor's skins, which is an extremely cool detail, by the way. And even the logo on Rupture's chest is actually a flipped raptor logo. On the planet of Shinsekai, Emerald Eagle became hungry for power as his time with the Raptor Force kept going by, and after swapping mech cores in an attempt to be at the top, Red Raptor exiled Emerald Eagle from the team. And so he consumed the power of his mech's core, corrupting him and turning Emerald Eagle into Rupture. And Rupture was a menace to Shinsekai on its own, but once Red Raptor had fallen to other Darkheart Kaijus, he became furious, assuming Rupture wanted to take Red Raptor down himself. So every mech team was being called to take down the livid madness that Rupture exists as. This last sentence is funny because I could honestly see them doing a Fenrir Rupture skin. Like, even if it doesn't make sense, it would look awesome. And of course, that's not even the half of it. Let's talk about Stalker. I'm going to point out now that the entirety of what I'm about to say can be almost completely disregarded since Stalker is a girl and Emerald Eagle is a boy. So we know that Rupture isn't Stalker already, but I want to talk about that theory that I had initially at BCX. My idea before Rupture released is that he was actually Stalker just under the different name and look. And maybe BMG didn't see it right to make Stalker the true identity of the Emerald Eagle, since Emerald Eagle in-game already looks a lot like Raptor. And if they did go through with it, then I could see no issue with Emerald Eagle being a girl, while Red Raptor's a boy, since we already have Tezuka and Shell, for example. I feel as if they could have kept the entire story they already have right now, but if they made Emerald Eagle a girl, then the theory of Rupture being Stalker makes sense. Their pronouns line up, and we actually don't know the true identity of Emerald Eagle. We know what Red Raptor's full name is, that being Daizendoro, but not Emerald Eagle. Again though, all this is kind of debunked by the fact that Stalker's a girl and Emerald Eagle is a boy. And while I do wish we got to see Stalker in today's Brawlhalla, maybe it's for the better we keep their identities split apart. But really, Rupture could have been either gender and he'd still look as badass as he does today. Once again, thanks to Barondipitus's video on Rupture's lore for helping shape this part of the video, as it would be drastically different otherwise. Make sure to check out his video in the description. So we have a fire weapon combo, fantastic signatures, a crazy stat lineup, amazing cosmetic selection, and arguably my favorite part, the lore. But what are your thoughts on the Nemesis himself? Do you just love this creature of chaos, despise him, or are you in the middle of the road? Let me know what your thoughts are, because I'm always curious. And of course, if you do like the content, then absolutely subscribe. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe at any time. And until the next one, y'all always remember to keep on brawling.